Wow, how historic is this? It's historic that we actually have a game that is flopping worse than the Borderlands movie. If you guys know the Borderlands film, it came out, I believe, like 3 weeks ago, and it is flopping hard at the box office. It is not doing well at all. I believe it only made like $18 million off like $100 million budget. So it's not doing well. It might be the worst flop of this year. Probably one of the worst flops of 2020. Like, it's doing bad. Like, it's doing really awful. But I don't think that it's as bad as the flop that we are currently seeing with the new game Concord. I feel like this is an historical flop in the gaming industry. Because, Jesus Christ, is this game not doing well at all. And it's just like Borderlands, where they spent, I believe the budget of this game was like $100 million. At least that's speculations, I don't know. It could have been a bit larger or smaller. It would have been worse if it was a lot larger, but I don't know what the actual budget is. I'm going to say it's around like $100 million from what I hear. But $100 million in this game, and it can't even crack 1,000 players on Steam charts? Like, that's a fucking recipe for a historical flop in the gaming industry. Because, Jesus Christ, $100 million and you can't even get people to crack 700 players? Like, it's unbelievable. It's actually unbelievable how the game has they spent $100 million in this game and they can't even crack 700 players. 700 peak players all time. There are literally some of the worst games out there, like Babylon's Fall and Redfall, that had a higher peak count than those two games. It didn't even have, it literally just barely cracked a higher player count all time than the Golem game, which is a historic piece of garbage. Like, I've played it, it's bad, it's terrible. It's a historic piece of garbage. It's one of the worst games of 2020. Hell, one of the worst games ever made, honestly. Like, it's a bad game. And the fact that you're telling me that you spent $100 million and you're barely outcracking a game that is a historic piece of trash, it's unbelievable. And what I think is even worse is this game was in an 8-year development and it turned out to just be very mid. Like, it wasn't a good game. It's not a bad game. Like, it's not like historically trash like Gollum, but it's just not good. Like, $100 million and it's just slow. Like, it's not good in anything. If you look at the gameplay of it, it looks incredibly slow. Like, it actually looks like you're playing on 0.5 speed when you play this game. It doesn't look great. I'll say that. It doesn't look great. It doesn't look horrible, but it's definitely not worth a $40 price tag. And if you thought this game was free, then my god, are you a fool? Because this game is not free at all. $40 for a hero shooter that is incredibly slow. They expect you to pay $40 for a hero shooter game that, first off, doesn't even look good. And a lot of hero shooter games nowadays are free. Like, no one's gonna want to pay $40 for a hero shooter when there are so many other hero shooter games out there that are probably miles better than Concord. So I believe that this is a historic piece of a flop in the gaming industry. Like, I feel like this might be one of the worst flops, if arguably the worst flop of 2020, like the 2020s. It's definitely the worst flop of 2024. Like, the Suicide Squad game was already a huge flop, but I feel like this game is flopping even worse. This game is flopping even worse. 6 years. Many even speculate that it was up to 8 years in development. $100 million. You can't even crack 1,000 players at your peak. Like, that's fucking worse than Suicide Squad. That is way worse than the Suicide Squad game. But yeah, just wanted to say this real quick. I believe this is the most embarrassing video game failure we have seen in quite some time, and arguably the worst flop in gaming history. One of the worst flops in gaming history. And yeah, I don't really feel bad for the devs though. I mean, I bet there are definitely some talented devs there, but like, what they were cooking in there was just a burnt piece of dog shit that nobody wanted. Like, legitimately, nobody wanted another hero shooter game, and not one that you had to pay $40 for. So yeah, that's about it. I'm out of here.